Welcome back to the Mackem in the Middle podcast. Another Sunderland game away from home, another away game I was at, and another away game we haven't won, which now takes my record up to something like one away win seen in what I think is 15 games in the last 5 years. So make of that what you will.
So we know what the problem is. It's your fault.
We do, absolutely, 100%, absolutely 100%. Even the games that we have lost are games that I said in the chat yesterday we shouldn't have lost. I'm not going to go through all of them, but Shrewsbury, a couple of games at Accrington, Charlton, and obviously Coventry yesterday. A nice 3-hour drive there and back after that game, which we'll get onto as always and talk about what happened during it. But it's 1 point from 9 in the last 3 games. Obviously, prior to that, it was 7 points from 9 and could have been 9 from 9 had we not conceded that late penalty against Bristol City. But 1 point from 9 is disappointing when you consider, I think, or I could be wrong on this, but I think all 3 teams that we have dropped points against in the last 3 games are below us or were below us at the time in the table. Obviously, Coventry still below us, but 1 point behind with a game in hand. Not a good day yesterday, and I'm sure we'll get onto one thing specifically. But overall, not a great day.
It's not a great day to end and not a great week, to be honest. To be honest, this result was not so surprising to me because I kind of expected it's one of those games where any of the outcomes, whether it be Coventry win, Sunderland win, or draw, wouldn't have surprised me too much. But it's nevertheless disappointing. We never seem to be able to beat Coventry, do we?
1985 is the last time we beat Coventry at Coventry.
Well, then there you go. That says a lot. But weirdly for me, because I wasn't on the Rotherham one, for me the Rotherham result was much more annoying after this one, because as you said, both games against Wigan and Rotherham you should be winning, really, or at least you'd be aiming to win realistically. Coventry was going to be difficult, but at the same time, the circumstances surrounding it, I mean, there's one main talking point which people might get sick of hearing at this point, but I'm sure you'll bring up in the next segment of the podcast. But yeah, it wasn't a great day all round. I mean, we scored a great goal at the end, but unfortunately it was just too little too late. I thought performance-wise we deserved something out of it, but if Coventry fans wanted to argue they just deserved to win, then I wouldn't totally begrudge it, because I did think Coventry did defend well, even though I didn't think that they were particularly great either. The one thing I will say is, my God, do these players need a physical and mental rest.
Yeah. We'll get on to that bit now, as probably expected, and it's something that I'm trying to find someone qualified to come on a podcast and talk about it, but because it's something that happens every week, every game, for every team in the country, League One, Championship, Premier League, League Two, whatever it is, there's teams around the country, things are going against them that
shouldn't be, really.
That decisions are going the wrong way. I mean, Wigan, thankfully, conceded a penalty against Preston, never a penalty. I think Hull conceded a penalty that was never a penalty. There was another one off the top of my head that I can't think of, but once again, refereeing in England is shit.
I love that. Just no preamble. Just jump right into it.
It is though, and I think I said it on Twitter. Yesterday was the worst referee I've seen us have this season, and I say it every week. But every week it gets even worse. And there was nothing. I mean, up to the goal, the referee was shit. And there's people talking about it on Twitter. There was 3 or 4 throw-ins, which in the grand scheme of the game don't make too much of a difference, don't impact the game that much. But if everything's going against you, there's it's an uphill battle, and there were so many just throw-ins and free kicks and fouls that any other week Sunderland get, and for some reason somehow the referees have given it to Coventry, and just to flip it on the other side as well. Gyökeres, as we've said, I think that's how you say it. I don't know how you say his name, but Gyökeres, so many times this season we've talked about Ross Stewart getting manhandled, getting nothing from referees, not getting free kicks. To be honest, there was at least 5 fouls I think in the second half that he should have got that he didn't get. That next week, obviously we play Stoke on Saturday. You can bet your bottom dollar that them exact same fouls are going to be given, which again goes back to the consistency argument. But we'll get on to the first goal shortly. But just in general, the referee had no clue as to what he was doing.
Well, I mean, your comment about him being the worst we've had this season, I personally still believe that's Keith Stroud. He's done well making a name for himself, I must admit. I still believe that Swansea home game was the worst that we've seen. But I'll tell you what, this referee, whatever his name is, I don't care. This referee earned a very close second for me, because he's very it was one. I think, like everyone said, at points in the game, it looked like he was just guessing. It was absolutely guessing. And Coventry fans, there were some Coventry fans on social media that were arguing that Sunderland were getting every decision in the first 20 minutes. I don't know what game they were watching, because I was watching completely the other way around. I think, there was one. I think there was one occasion where Jack Clark tries to run down the left wing at 0-0, and he gets a penalty, and he gets a free kick against him for handball. And I'm pretty sure there was one crucial point where at least one Coventry player was blatantly handballing it, and nothing was given there.
In fact, we'll get onto that bit straight away, so we don't drag it out too long. The first goal is the first part of the first goal. Is it a foul on Gelhardt? Because for me, I think it's
yes. Right. Easily.
So there's that there. Obviously, that happens in the build-up to the goal. It doesn't get given. Something else happens, which we'll get onto. They go up the pitch. Gyökeres plays it into, I think it was Jamie Allen, I think it is, whoever that is. He scores the goal. Coventry go 1-0 up. The foul is one of them ones where, if you ask 10 people, do you think it's a foul? 6 might say yes, 4 might say no. You're never going to have 10 people say yes or 10 people say no. But the big part of it is the same player who, in my eyes, in your eyes, and quite a few people's eyes, fouled Gelhardt. The referee doesn't give it, fair enough. He then uses his right hand to palm the ball onto his left hand in the build-up to the goal, which, you can have your opinions, but there's no opinion needed on that, because if it hits your hand in the build-up to a goal, it is a foul. Deliberate, not deliberate, hands down by your side, hands above your head, however it hits your hand, it is a handball. And it didn't happen once, it happened twice. And, there was a Coventry fan on Twitter, his argument was, well, how can the referee give it if he doesn't see it? The referee's not in the best spot for it. Fair enough. The linesman, if he's actually stood where he should be, which is, again, another point of referees just, not really doing the job properly. If he stood where he should be, he has a clear view of it. He sees the first handball, he sees the second handball. It's a foul, it's a free kick, Sunderland. We don't go 1-0 down.
Yeah, and and ultimately the first goal in a lot of games proves vital, because the first goal obviously opens the score. You can determine the way the game goes. So, and that's another point. Obviously, I'm trying hard not to repeat my rants about referees, but one thing I will say to add something different is the fact that the linesmen, or lineswomen, to be fair, lines officials, whoever it is, they do. What do they do? What do they do? If, as you said yourself, the linesman was nowhere to be seen. If he is where he should be, that incident with Gelhardt or the handball should be happening right in front of him, and somehow nothing gets given for that.
It is genuinely a point, and I'm interrupting a lot here, but there's no point in linesmen anymore, because, like I said in the first half, throw-ins, which is realistically the only thing they are there for nowadays, they weren't even getting them decisions right. So many offsides this season. The second main thing that a linesman has to do, they don't get them right. There is no, how many times, if you watch on Saturday and, if you watch the game, but take a note of how many times the linesman flags for a foul, he never will. And even if the linesman stood in front of the player, he won't flag for the foul. He probably doesn't think it's a foul. The referee will still give it.
Yeah, but again, that's the problem. But the points we're bringing up means it sounds like linesmen are just completely redundant at this point, because there's just there is no point in them being there. They don't. And the one area I will give the referees, and this is something that I will give a bit of sympathy here, the linesmen have got to help them out a lot more. They've got to actually be wanting to, if something's happening within their range of vision, then they need to be taking responsibility and go, no, this is what happened, this is what I saw, blah, 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 blah. Take some heat off the referees, man, because, as we know, we're living in a day and age where mental health's a big thing, and the referees' mental health will get impacted by a lot of these decisions. Now, granted, they don't make a lot of the right ones, and that's where the criticism comes from, and rightly so. But the linesman's got to be there to help. Don't just stand on the sideline and be a passenger. Actually try to get involved.
Yeah. And like I say, after that, he hadn't got control of the game the entire time. Not just the linesman are irrelevant, but the fourth official as well. I think there was no added time in that first half, despite the fact there was a goal for a start, which, if you think of the goal, the celebrations, ball getting back to the halfway line, you're looking at a minute. There was no added time in the first half. So again, fourth official, not entirely sure what he's there. There's so many throw-ins and fouls close to him that, he's clearly not feeding any kind of information to the referee. And if he is, then, it's the wrong one. But after that first goal, like I said, the word decisions went against both teams. I mentioned, the fouls on their striker, who I'm not going to say because I will probably give him 15 pronunciations of his name. So many of them that, any other week they will get given. But after that, you could tell Sunderland were frustrated by it, and you could tell that Coventry knew what was happening.
Yeah, well, you could. But right, I know it's a frustrating thing, is because again, like I said earlier, the referee had absolutely no control of it. I mean, there was I think one of the YouTubers, I can't remember who it was, said that if you're just going back to the first goal very quickly, if you look at the foul on Gelhardt or the handball, whatever it is, the Coventry players stopped. They stopped and expected a free kick to be given. So if that's the case, then they blatantly knew it was a free kick. So how the referee, or if not the referee, the linesman can't see that, I don't know. But again, it's the little things, like you said, they keep building up, and eventually, and I've said this on Twitter loads of times, this will cost teams. I'm telling you, what is it going to take for the standards of officiating to get better? Because, say at the end of the season, Wigan and Rotherham, the two teams that came up with us, let's say, because they play each other last game of the season, say one of them stays up because of a controversial handball goal that should have been disallowed, and that affects the other one and sends it to relegation. It's going to take something like that to wake people up and realize, actually, hang on, something's got to be done about it here. And I'm getting bored of mentioning referees every week, but we've got to keep doing it, because otherwise, we can't keep letting the standards continue like this. It affects everybody, not just us, everybody. Even in League One, when we played Bradford and they had a goal that was clearly should have been given in the first season in League One, that contributed to them getting relegated. So, if the referees need help, like I've said before, the refs need help, give them help with VAR. If they don't need it, or the linesmen start taking responsibility for it, for goodness sake, because it's getting frustrating. And the last point I'll make before I let you move on, the last 3 games, as much as the results have been frustrating and aspects of Sunderland's performances can be called into question, and should be, obviously, but if you look at it, the penalty against Bristol City, yes, the challenge for me was a penalty, but there was a handball there was a tug of the shirt in the build-up. Soft or not, I'm sure by the letter of the law that's a foul now. So that should have been given as a free kick. The goal in midweek, which I know you had a pretty interesting conversation on Twitter about, the Elise goal at Rotherham, should have stood. So that's 3 points right there that we've been cost because of that. And then this game, the all-important first goal happens because the referees aren't doing their job properly. Granted, Sunderland's defending should still be better afterwards, but it rattles everyone up. It's going to happen. So, yeah, I'll shut up and let you carry on.
No, that wasn't the only thing that went against Sunderland in the first half. And again, not particularly game-changing, but frustrating nonetheless. There was a time when Ahmad, who granted didn't have the best game and wasn't involved too much, but one of the main times he was involved was, I think, towards the end of the first half. He flies past one player, gets kicked. Flies past a second player, gets kicked. Fly past a third player, gets kicked. Flies past a fourth player, gets brought down, gets their player booked. And you were watching it on TV, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
So you might, I don't know if they showed replays of it, but Diallo was booked for supposedly reacting to it, which, if 4 people are trying to deliberately take you down without any attempt to play the ball, which, could quite easily be 4 yellow cards in the grand scheme of the game, because not one of them players have went for the ball. They're all tactical fouls. Obviously, that's not how football works nowadays for some reason. But he's got up. From where I was sat, he looks like, he obviously fell on the player. He's trying to get up. The other player looked to have had a hold of his leg, pushed him off it, and Ahmad's got the same punishment as the 4 players who have just tried to hack him down with no attempt to play the ball.
Yeah. That, I think what you've just said there literally describes the state of the officials. At first glance in real time before it shows the replays, I thought, it looked like he stamped on him, but obviously that's because of the camera angle and the way it's portrayed on screen. Yeah. So for me, I thought for a minute, okay, he might get lucky to escape a red here, but when you look at it back, as he's trying to get away from the lad he's brought down, and his leg's getting held back. So yeah. And so how Ahmad gets like you've said it, how Ahmad gets a yellow card for that, I do not know. I agree with you. I thought that was one of Ahmad's poorer games, certainly in the first half. I thought he was dreadful, actually. But it doesn't change the fact that he shouldn't. How he got a free kick for that is just beyond me.
Yeah.
So I got a yellow card, you know what I meant.
Yeah. But it was 1-0 at half-time, I believe it was. And the second half from Sunderland was better than the first half. But, we saw it in the last, I think it was 94th minute or something, the reluctance from Sunderland to shoot from anywhere further than about 3 yards out is, I don't want to say costing us games, because quite frankly, you don't know whether the shots are going to go in or not, but I suppose costing us the chances of getting something out of these games. Because you look at the Rotherham game, I mentioned it to John, they scored 2 goals, 2 good goals, but both from outside the box. if we're in that position there, you've got, an Ahmad in the position where Rathbone is. He's not shooting there. He's playing it over to Roberts, and Roberts is playing it to Hume, who's playing it in Neil, back to Roberts, into Diallo, and we probably lose the ball. The reluctance from Sunderland to shoot from anywhere outside the box is something that will affect how many points we can pick up this season, because teams know that we're not going to shoot. They just pack bodies behind the ball, which, is exactly what they should be doing, because, if you want to win a game against Sunderland and you don't give them the space to play in and play these little triangles, you're going to win the game because we don't shoot.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm someone that I always have an unpopular opinion here. I'm not the biggest fan of shooting outside the box unless you know for certain that your chance is going to go in. But the fact is, if you don't take a shot, you don't know. If you don't take any shots, you don't know. So, and it's one of those where, like you said, if you want to win against us, make the space inside the box compact, make it hard for us to break them down, and then it means that we're forced to long shots that are hopeful and won't go anywhere. So that is something that we definitely do need to work on, because if you're not having shots from outside the box, it decreases your chances of scoring, because the more shots you have, there's a bigger percentage chance that you're going to score, as opposed to not taking a shot. So I agree with you that I think the second half was definitely better, but I think the second half was apart from 2 or 3 moments where we should have scored, admittedly. Ahmad had one at the far post, and then obviously the Patrick Roberts scramble from the 6-yard box was just criminal that he didn't put that away. But otherwise, it was a case of Sunderland literally had the ball, but not do as much with it and not be as effective with it. You might not have seen this because you were at the game, but there was a stat on Sky where I watched the game, and they said that Coventry have won more games when they've had less than 50% of the ball. And I think the end stats was something like 71% in Sunderland's favour. Now, having possession's all well and good, but you need to do something with it.
Yeah, it was something like 70-odd% we had in that game.
71, I think, something like that. Yeah.
If watching that game and looking at the score, you probably wouldn't have actually thought it, because it's so easy to forget possession when, like you say, you do nothing with it. And for so long, we didn't. And because of that, Coventry did. They took advantage and they broke away in the second half. Ball in the box. Mr. Gyökeres is there. I actually thought it was a Ballard on goal, first of all, because it was right in front, but it wasn't. It came off him, and it's 2-0 Coventry. And the way Sunderland were, I suppose, the way Sunderland were playing, and especially in the final third, that is the goal that, kind of made it a write-off, I think.
Well, yeah, because as I said earlier, Ahmad ends up getting a goal in stoppage time, but that's the goal that clinches it, isn't it? Because and to be fair, stuff like that is going to happen, because we were trying to go, albeit we weren't being very effective at it, but we were trying to go forward and trying to get an equaliser, and that's the sort of thing that just happens. That's always the risk that you're going to have, where if you're pushing everybody forward, then there's a good opportunity, there's a good chance you get hit on the break. Like I said, Gyökeres, I didn't think Gyökeres was, one thing Gyökeres was effective at, and this is where I will criticise Sunderland, is that obviously, and it's not through the fault of Tony Mowbray or the team, it's just the fact we don't have Ross Stewart. Gyökeres was the outball because there were many times where Coventry was solid defensively and they cleared it out, and Gyökeres was the outball, and he either won a free kick or a throw in, whatever it was. That's what ended up helping them in the end, and obviously he got a goal to go with it. So once that second goal went in, unless we did a Newcastle when we scored twice at Everton in like a minute, then you're not gonna. It's a highly likely chance you're going to get nothing from the game, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, we made changes, and to be honest, I think some of them, again, with due respect to Mowbray, didn't make too much sense at the time. We took Gelhardt off to bring an extra midfielder on. We took Jack Clark off for Pritchard, which is a fair enough one, but some of them didn't make too much sense. And I talk about shooting from range. We didn't up until the 93rd minute, when you've got someone with the quality of Diallo, who, again, like I said, didn't have the best game, but you will see him come up with something out of nothing, as he did. Grand scheme of things, didn't mean anything, but probably just piled on the frustration that if Sunderland shot more, they'd score more.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, all be accurate with their shooting, because as we said in the second half at 1-0, there was an opportunity where the ball switched to Diallo on the right hand side, funnily enough, runs into the box, and then it's a scramble in the 6-yard area, as said before, and then Roberts toe pokes it wide, basically, where if you just get that on target, there's a good chance you make it 1-1. So it is a shame that sort of goal came when it was too late, but I suppose at that point, Coventry kind of took their foot off the gas, and any team would in that situation, where you think, okay, 2-0, a few minutes to go, yeah, you've probably got this, but it's a shame. And again, Ahmad didn't really have his best game, rather. I think the first half was probably his poorest performance for me. But, at the end of the day, if you've still not been that great and you come away with a goal, it just goes to show that you obviously have still got the quality. The main thing for me that I'll take away from this game is that this game is the conclusion of a month where is basically a conclusion of 3 weeks where we've had a game every 3-4 days, and we've had 7 games in total in these 3 weeks. And for and bar a few changes here and there, the core of the teams more or less remain the same. I think Dan Neil's played every game, Dan Ballard's played every game, Danny Bart's played every game, Gelhart's played, apart from Fulham in the Cup, played every game. Clark, I think, has played every game. Roberts has obviously played a majority of the games. Same with Pritchard, same with Ahmad. Yeah, so I want to see how we're going to do next week against Stoke, given that we have a week off.
Yeah, and that is, of course, a massive game for multiple reasons, but mainly because Sunderland need to get back to winning games. It's now 4
not the reason
games.
I'm thinking of, but I won't.
It is.
With it.
There is that reason as well. Of course, if he's still in a job by then, but more so for the fact I think it's now 4 games without a win for Sunderland. I think
it's 3. If we don't beat Stoke, it's 4.
Yeah. So let's not make it 4. But second, last but not least, one standout player from the game for Sunderland would be.
I'm not going to say Diallo, because even though he scored, I thought he was pretty ineffective, certainly in the first half. Oh, it's a hard one to think. I'll probably say Patrick Roberts. I think when Sunderland were going forward, I thought Patrick Roberts looked the most likely to try and create something out of nothing. And albeit his finishing, he should have had a goal yesterday. But yeah, I'd say Patrick Roberts. I mean, if you said Ahmad's second half, I thought Ahmad was all right second half, actually. But across the whole game, I think Roberts was just slightly edging over him, whereas Ahmad was good for one half, but pretty appalling in the first.
Yeah. Well, the next game is Saturday, what I believe is a 3:00 kickoff. Like you said there before, it is the first time in a little while that we have had a break, which is probably good for everyone. Emphasis on everyone, really. It is at home, like I say, against Stoke, a team that are struggling and have struggled all season, against a team managed by Alex Neil, who obviously has his
fair share of detractors now.
There is that. I still can't think of the word though. There is, but he's there, and hopefully will still be there, because the way they're playing under him at the moment, and the fact they're not scoring many goals, not winning many games, should hopefully give
that Stoke will probably beat us, because
we do love to break records for the wrong reasons, but hopefully Sunderland can get back and win that game. And if I think you lose that game and then you're very quickly actually, falling out of the playoff race, especially after the last 3 games prior to that as well. But prediction for that one, if you had to go for one?
Well, one thing that I will say that hopefully will help us here is that Stoke play on Tuesday night against, probably by the time podcast is up, midweek against Brighton in the FA Cup. And I'll point this out. I think ever since we played Reading, Stoke have played every 3 days since that date. So we played Reading on February the 11th. So Stoke played, I think, February 11th, 15th, I think, 18th, 21st, 25th, and play on the 1st of March. Sorry, 28th of February. So, and I can't see Alex Neil putting a reserve team out against Brighton. I think he'll want to make a good go of it. So, and fair enough. So for that, I'm going to say we will win. I do think we'll edge it, because the one thing is Stoke apparently do have quite a lot of efforts, but the one thing is we need to stop them having efforts, and we need to be a bit more physical, actually. I think we're too nice recently. But yeah, I think we'll win. I think the fact it's Alex Neil coming back, I think will play a big factor. And last thing I'll say on it, I'll say 2-1 Sunderland. But I do think if I was Tony Mowbray, I'd be saying, this is to condense my feelings towards the man, knowing this is the person who walked out on you, go and prove him why he was wrong to do so. Yeah,
and I don't think you'll find a better reason for the players to get up for this game. Not that they should have any issue doing that anyway, but like I say, that is on Saturday.
But if there's any reason to give them extra motivation, that would be it.
It is, 100%. We'll have something out to talk about that some point after that game. I don't think there's a midweek game after that one either, is there? Or is there? Could be wrong.
No, there isn't. The next midweek game we've got is the 15th of March, I think, against Sheffield United. So the next 2 midweeks we've got completely free.
Yeah. So that is, if the win out against Stoke, again, you have a week's break to go ahead into the next game as well, which will be big come the end of the season, because, with how hectic the schedule is, and to be honest, how light our squad is, especially in a certain area, which I'll not go into.
The last thing, sorry to interrupt you, but the last thing I will say is it's probably quite, unless something happens in training. It's quite miraculous we've got through these games without many injuries. I don't think anyone fresh has come injured from this running. So in a way, we should probably be thankful for that.
We should. And it's about time we had luck with injuries, because we didn't have that at the start of the season, did we?
You're telling me, but we'll be here all day if I go on about injuries.
That's all, folks.